Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Destina. This is Spiritually Bougie Astrology, and we are going to be looking at all of the energy tied to this new moon eclipse in Aries, our second new moon in Aries, the start of eclipse season, the catalyst energy that's going to launch a lot of things forward into a whole new set of things. But a lot of people don't necessarily know the roll that's going on, the wheel that's been turning, the things that are starting to fall into place for people. This has been going on for a long time. Not everybody seems to realize that. It's been going on literally since November of 2021, the way things are starting to slide and fall into place. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this is supposed to be just a new moon. It's not supposed to be an eclipse because this particular eclipse is an out of sign eclipse in the sign of Aries because the North Node is still very much in Taurus. There's an interesting aspect whenever it comes to the eclipse axis, whenever it goes from the nodes being in Taurus and Scorpio, and then transitioning over to Libra and Aries. That particular interest that I have is the fact that the ruling planets of the eclipse axis doesn't change. Any other time, the nodes go from one sign to another, the rulerships of those eclipses change hands. In the summer of 2020, when the nodes went from Cancer and Capricorn to Gemini and Sagittarius, we went from a moon and Saturn ruled eclipse cycle to Mercury and Jupiter ruled eclipse cycles. In January of 2022, when the nodes went from Gemini and Sagittarius to Taurus and Scorpio, we went from Mercury, Jupiter to Venus, Mars. Now, when the eclipse axis changes here in a few months, it's not going to change rulerships. It's just going to change the dynamic of the theme. So since January of 2022, the North Node has been in Taurus, in the Venusian sign, and the South Node has been in Scorpio, in the Plutonian Martian sign. The one thing about Scorpio that's a little different is the fact that there's two rulers. There is the traditional ruler and there is the modern ruler. Traditional ruler, of course, is Mars. Modern ruler is Pluto. And Pluto's very heavy in the energy tied to this eclipse, this out of sign eclipse that we're going into. I'll get to that here in a minute. But whenever the nodes change signs in July, what's going to happen is that the South Node is going to go into the Venusian sign and the North Node is going to go into the Martian sign. So we'll have more Martian gains with Rahu, or the North Node, or the head of the dragon, depending on how you look at him, in that area of the chart, while we have Ketu, the South Node, this area of release and letting things go and cutting things off and finding new levels of peace, going from the Scorpio to the Libra sign. So we're in a transition that's going to have a lot more of a long-term dynamic than just what we're dealing with in this eclipse. Now, when we started this eclipse axis at the beginning of 2022, that wasn't actually the start. The start was November of 2021. Why do I say that? Because in the mid part of November, we didn't have a full moon in Gemini eclipse. We had an out of sign eclipse in Taurus. That out of sign eclipse in Taurus was meant to bring certain things together. And I have a chart for this that I'll pull up here in a little bit. But that was the very first inkling, the very first dynamic, the very first hint of where the next few years was going to take us. But it was a hint. It was an idea. It was an inkling. It hadn't started yet. The dynamic truly started in January of 2022. The way that transit worked is that we had a Sun-Pluto conjunction one day. The next day was a Sun-Pluto conjunction with a full moon in Cancer. And then literally right after that full moon in Cancer, the nodes changed signs. And anyone that I was doing readings for back then, I said, we're going to close something out in these few days and immediately feel the shift and feel us shifting our focus and shifting our energy and shifting certain parts of our direction, certain aspects in our dynamic. And that then in January of 2022 started a new 18-month cycle. That 18-month cycle will be coming to a close in July, per se. There's a very interesting pattern that has arisen in this set of transits that tells me that a lot of where we're shifting our energies right now are not just shifting them into their place as to where we want them to close out this cycle, but it's because this cycle is also launching the energy of the next cycle. And considering we started this cycle with an out of sign eclipse, we're in this cycle with an out of sign eclipse. I'm saying that because this new moon is an out of sign. It's not the ending of the cycle, but the next cycle, the next eclipse axis that will happen later this year will only be in the Venusian signs. So this eclipse, you can make fun of me, eclipse axis is we have the new moon in the Mars ruled sign in the out of sign area. And then the full moon that we're going to have here in a few weeks is going to also be in the Mars ruled sign. What I think is very interesting about that is we have these two Mars ruled eclipses following a Mars retrograde. Literally, the Mars retrograde ended in January. Mars finally left Gemini in March. We're still not even a month from that, and we're going into Mars ruled eclipses. 2 + 2 is 4. That is a very interesting energy, and it tells me a lot of the things that were being shifted into place and shifted through and pushed into different areas, the space that was being made, because Mars likes to cut. We're talking about the god of war. So we cut people off, we shift things forward, we nail things in place, we nail a door shut sometimes. But there's been very harsh energies shifting things, cutting things, trimming things, and getting things into a more structurally stable concept. And we are still in concept mode right now. I feel like this timeline of having Mars go through Cancer while we have Mars ruled eclipses is going to show us where we're building certain infrastructures for certain new levels of stability. Now, the other part of the pattern that I think is very interesting is where we're going to be later this year. In July, the North Node is going to go into Aries, the South Node will go into Libra. The nodes will change signs. And immediately following the nodes changing signs, what will we have? A Venus retrograde. The eclipse axis that will follow the Venus retrograde, literally a month after her debacle, is going to be Venus ruled. We'll have a new moon in Libra, and then we will have another out of sign eclipse in Taurus. Now, this all comes into an easy, noticeable set of patterns. The last, I'm going to go ahead and say 18 months because I'm going to include the timeline of the out of sign eclipse, but this 18-month cycle, so to speak, that started in January of 2022 has been meant to very much shift areas of stability. By shifting and shaking up these areas of stability, it's going to allow for new things to begin in the following eclipse axis, in the following eclipse sign. The Martian making space, cutting people off, cutting people out, building something new, bringing something to a new level of fruition that Mars has been doing is going to allow for the Venusian energy to take shape later, to build the infrastructure. We do this with the idea that we want the benefit later. We want to build the structure, so to speak, build the building, build the routine, build the assembly line, build whatever we need to build, Mars and Cancer. So that way, whenever we have the Venus retrograde, the benefit comes through in many, many ways. Now, I went back through for the last 100 years and I looked for a similar pattern set to the timeline that we're going into. And the two closest ones that I found, one was in our lifetime and one was not so much in a lot of our lifetimes. So the one that was within our lifetime, the closest would be back in 2004 to 2005. And I will probably do another video and I'll go over this in more detail and I'll bring in like the big picture macro stuff as to what was going on in the universe, the atmosphere, the economy, the world. The other one, however, didn't have the same retrograde part to the eclipse axis, but it had very, very similar placements in the sky. And that one was in 1939. So there's a real big reason why I'm saying I'll probably do a second video later on that is just going to go over those two time periods and where we had similar transits coming through and similar transits doing things to see the types of patterns from those timelines that are reoccurring now and tie those together. I've already been working on part of that, but I don't want to put all of that into one video. Now, new moons are usually a new beginning. Eclipses are usually like vast, heavy energies of new beginning. And I don't mean heavy in the sense of like all the weight of the world on your shoulders or a lot of emotion. It can be that way depending on where it's at in your chart and what's going on, but it doesn't have to be that way. What it more feels like for a lot of people is like a lot of what we're going into is this energy that we've been in is a very much an anchoring point, an anchor point as to how we will be in the fixated areas of our life for the next minimum 9 years, really 17 and a half years. And I'm saying that because of the entirety of what it takes for the nodes to go all the way around. The nodes do a full cycle every 17 and a half years. So if you are 36 to 37 right now, like you're going through your nodal return. If you're in that 17 and a half range, then you are going through your nodal return. That is kind of how that goes. Okay, now let me share my screen and I'm going to pull up that Out of Sign Eclipse first, and then I'll start to go over the actual new moon stuff. So pull this up in my ephemeris. Voila. So my little acronym, instead of spelling all that out of sign eclipse, out of sign full moon eclipse in Taurus 2021. This was November 19th, 2021, 2:58 a.m. And I put everything to Tulsa because I'm in Oklahoma. I don't lie about that. So where were the transits? Here's the sun at 27 degrees. Here is the moon at 27 degrees and 14 minutes. Here's our full moon. This full moon was less than 5 degrees away from the nodes. So this is why we are having an eclipse, but because of its placement, it's an out of sign eclipse. But there's another element here. We have this Venusian out of sign eclipse with Venus. The way we started the eclipse axis in the new signs was while Venus was retrograde. The way that we will start the new eclipse axis in July will be with a Venus retrograde. There's a pattern here. There's things that are coming together. We're going to go from a Saturnian Venus retrograde energy to a Sun Venus retrograde energy because it's going to be in Leo. Now, here is Venus. During this eclipse, Venus entered shadow. Venus was in a trine to Uranus. This is the same point she came back to in the sky at the end of her retrograde. And when she hit this connection right here, she did a 6-week conjunction with Mars because Mars right here in Scorpio caught up with her. And because of how slow he goes and how long it took for her to get her bearings, they really did stay in a conjunction with one another for 6 weeks. They didn't separate until they got into Aquarius and made conjunctions to Saturn. When Saturn got involved, that's when they finally broke apart. Now, Venus ruled eclipse, Venus entered shadow for a retrograde. Whereas Mars, again, I'm going to bring this up, in Scorpio, making an opposition to Uranus. Venus, though, was making a trine to Uranus. This out of sign eclipse that did the initial energy connection, the initial glimpse, glimmer, inkling of what was going to come in the following months once the eclipse axis changed, we didn't know the full extent of it. Think back to what was going on in November of 2021 before that Venus retrograde. What was coming through? Who were you talking to? Where were the conversations going? What decisions were made at that time? Because those decisions, that specific energy, was what was leading us to where we are falling into place right now. Right now with this next eclipse axis energy. Now, big now. That's then. I will bring this chart up again in a month when we have the new moon in Taurus that should be an eclipse but isn't an eclipse, because that new moon is happening right here within 1 degree of where this full moon happened. So again, what energies, what things started to come through in November of 2021? Because they're starting to come full circle now. We're starting to get the full picture. We're starting to see the full dynamic from that energy. Okay. It is April 19th. That is whenever the eclipse is going to happen. For Central Time Zone, because remember I'm Central Time, it's roughly going to come exact between 11 p.m. and midnight. So if you're East Coast, your new moon eclipse is going to technically happen on the 20th. If you're West Coast, of course, you're going to be a little bit earlier in the evening than me. If you're further out in the time zones, then we need to add or subtract whatever is necessary for you. Most of us are going to experience this overnight from the 19th into the 20th. So for some of my viewers, it's going to be the 20th. For some, it's going to be the 19th. It just happens to be because of how late in the evening it is my time and whenever I'm putting this up. Now, here is the North Node at 4 degrees of Taurus. And of course, this new moon is at 29 degrees of Aries. The other thing that's going to happen immediately following this eclipse is Mercury is going to turn retrograde. One other thing that's going to happen immediately following this eclipse, I'm just going to bump this by day and then I'll pull it back, is that both the moon and the sun will leave Aries and square Pluto. So there's certain parts of the energy, certain actions that have been taken, certain decisions that have been made that I said it before in the Week Ahead podcast, that we're kind of reaching a plateau. We're reaching a certain level that is either going to make us rethink the direction, or it's going to make us recall certain people, bring certain people in that can be supportive, that can be helpful to how we move forward to where we're going in the next chapter in the eclipse axis. Because for a lot of us, the Mercury retrograde eclipse energy that happened last year in May, that Mercury retrograde started, I just went blank for a second. End of April. Like Pluto went retrograde, then Mercury went retrograde. But it started in Gemini and it went back into Taurus before moving forward again. This one is 100% Taurus. I said that in the Mercury retrograde video. All of the Mercury retrogrades this year are in Earth signs. So they're shifting things in regards to tangible stability. And it's all going to kind of come down to what is ruled in your houses by both Gemini and Taurus. Why do I say that? We got to add a layer. Remember, Mercury is in mutual reception to Venus. So whatever Venus is going through, Mercury is going through. Whatever Mercury is going through, Venus is going through. They're going to be very tied together in the energies with the eclipse axis. So I'm just taking this back to where I was. This new moon energy. This new moon is squaring Pluto. Mathematically, it's an 89-degree square. We're not quite the full 90, but we're pretty freaking close. This tells me that whatever is falling into place, whatever we're shifting, whatever we're taking to the next level, before we can launch the next level, before we can bring things into full force, we need to have an adjustment. Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio, where the next eclipse is going to be. Pluto has a heavy hand into what is going on and how things are starting to fall into place for people in general. Aquarius, which is where Pluto is right now, is the sign of people. It's the sign of the masses. It's the sign of humanitarianism. It's friends, it's networks, it's colleagues, it's how you reach out to people. And Pluto is in his pinky toe dip of this area. He's transforming this area, but he is also at the end of the transformation period. During the eclipse, not just this eclipse, I'm sorry, during eclipse season, so over these next few weeks, what's going to happen? Pluto is going to turn retrograde and he will go back into Capricorn. So the changes and transformations, that these new inklings of power and these new inklings of intellectual knowledge, it's only going to go so far, and then certain steps backwards have to occur. That's going to be a part of the retrograde. The sun squaring Pluto, therefore this new moon squaring Pluto, means we are reaching the initial edge to where we're going to be in transformation. We can only go so far in our current energy, in our current axis, in our current movements, and then it's going to require change. We will get some levels of new stability, but we will also see the limitations. The sun squared Pluto is going to be like, see how far I've come, but also realize you can only go so far, and then you're going to have to work out the kinks. We're going to see the progress to a certain extent, and then we're going to have to find a way to make this the mundane part of the routine. If things don't work out in that routine, it's going to send us back to the drawing board. And that's going to be a big part of the planning energy as Pluto goes back into Capricorn. That's months away. But understand that immediately following the new moon eclipse, we have Mercury turning retrograde. In other words, going back over something. And we're going to have Pluto going retrograde, and his retrograde is going to lead to another sign. We can only progress so far before we have to go back over something. So I really mean that a lot of us are kind of reaching a bit of a plateau. And that plateau is either going to be like the flat line energy, which hopefully that's not a whole lot of you, but a lot of us are going to feel the need to curve, the need to adjust, the need to bring in help, the need to bring in another opinion, the need to bring in an investor, the need to bring in somebody else's knowledge or experience to get things to the next level. Some of us are going to be bringing in old clients and old friends because we've risen our energy to the level that we can make it stable. And now once we've got to this energy, we now need to take it to a new point, take it to a new level. We need to launch something. We need to unveil something. And this is going to require new levels of interaction and bringing people in again. There's a lot of commerce level energy to where a lot of these transits are going. So for people that are truly in the business aspect, that are making changes in business, that are making changes in their industries and trying to streamline a new process, that again is going to then require taking it to people, taking it to your clients, taking it to colleagues, taking it to your coworkers, launching some things. There is an energy that we can only go so far, and then we must do the pivot. So a lot of us are bringing in new people, extra people, new energies based off this eclipse. Now, given the way that the sun is going to square Pluto, a lot of us are going to not just see the limitations of the work or the limitations of the transformation. And even then, it's a lot of people aren't going to see it as limitations. They're going to see them reaching a certain expectation, and then later on they're going to realize this expectation wasn't high enough and we need to set higher goals. That's not a bad thing. It has growing pains involved, but it's not technically a bad thing. Another thing that's going to start to come through for other people is not necessarily seeing that limitation, but it's going to be seeing something from the past. The sun square to Pluto is going to last for a few days. And during that time, Mercury is also going to turn retrograde. I can't stress that part enough. There is going to be something triggered for a lot of people, whether that is somebody telling you a negative experience they've had and you able to, one, share your own experience, and two, how you overcome it. There's going to be others that are going to be able to turn the corner and again, see a moment from the past, see something from the past, see something that can, incite fear or anything like that, that shows you an area that you need to work through and that you need to heal. Others are going to literally come to the light and have the ability to see somebody else's transformation and being able to talk to people about their transformation. And that talking is going to very much be instigated by Mercury's retrograde, bringing back people from the past. As new things come to the surface, as new things come to light, so too will be the people that have questions. Because what are people? Nosy. People are nosy. It doesn't matter if you think you're an introvert or not. The minute there's drama outside and it sounds like a Jerry Springer show, what are people doing? They are in the window. When people are driving down the road and there is an accident on the side, what do people do? Rubberneck. You want to know what I cuss about a lot? Rubbernecking. I'm not even going to deny that. So there is going to be part of the pivoting energy in this plateau, so to speak, that is going to make us see something from a new light, see something from the past, face something from the past, see certain levels of transformation, talk about certain levels of transformation, or it's going to be, I have gone as far as I can go and I have no other choice but to bring somebody else in, whether that is an aid or a partner, an investor, or it's taking a product, taking an idea, taking something you've been working on to the masses, to people, to clients in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Now, I'm going to back this up by hour because I want to move the ascendant. I'm going to start this at Aries because, of course, it's a new moon in Aries. There we go. And then I'll kind of go from there. So this is, of course, starting at like 5 to 6 a.m. Central Time. And the ascendant is in Aries. So this is where we're going to start. Now, the one thing about the new moon day is that the moon is actually going to make a conjunction to Jupiter before it does the new moon energy later in the evening. So there is something beneficial that is meant to come together in this energy when it comes to the energy of Jupiter. Jupiter is hope, it is abundance, it is prosperity, it is spirituality, it is our beliefs. And there is something is meant to come together in some way, shape, or form when the moon's conjunction to Jupiter happens. Then later in the evening, the moon's going to conjunct the sun. We'll have that eclipse. And the thing about eclipses is we don't just look at the 3-degree range. And I look at most conjunctions, squares, and oppositions. I look at their triggers happening within a 3-degree range. But when it's an eclipse, we expand that. And I expand it more to like 10. So if you have natal placements anywhere from 19 degrees of Aries to 9 degrees of Taurus, 19 degrees of Capricorn to 9 degrees of Aquarius, 19 degrees of Libra to 9 degrees of Scorpio, or 19 degrees of Cancer to 9 degrees of Leo. There is some aspect of either Jupiter or the eclipse or the nodes where they're at that you are going to be feeling through this eclipse energy. And because for us in the central area of America, that this is happening so late in the evening, for a lot of us, the new moon energy is really going to happen on the 20th. It'll We'll feel kind of the buildup and the angst, so to speak, going into the day and into the evening. But I feel like for more of us, it's going to play out after the eclipse and through the parts of eclipse season. Okay, so starting with Aries and Aries rising. And I always say, listen for both your rising sign and your sun sign when you're listening to these. If you are a nighttime chart, i.e., you were born at night, then listen to your moon sign also. But if you were born in the daytime, listen to your sun sign and your rising. All right. For Aries and Aries rising, this is a new moon in your first house. This is you, your person, your ego, and everything that you're doing. Immediately following the new moon, the energy shifts to Taurus, to your second house of money, to your assets, the way you spend money, the way that you make money. Where's Jupiter going to go later this year? Also into your second house of money. So certain decisions that you have made over the last month for sure, but during this entire timeline, has been bringing you into a whole new level of getting things going. A lot of this is meant to be in a very positive light. And where you're going to see the difference is going to instigate levels of both peace and excitement. We're feeling very proud. We're feeling like we're getting a lot of things going. We're feeling like we're getting a lot of things in line. Your chart ruler, Mars, is in your fourth house of home life, and family. For a lot of Aries risings, we are looking at the way that we deal with homes or property or investments very, very differently. The way that we work with our clients has changed, and we're doing more emphasis in this. And a lot of us are starting to feel how well the routine that we've already been working on is going. And now what we're going to start to see is that the changes that you have made as an individual are going to start to be recognized by other people. Whether that's been a positive change or a negative change, that depends on you and your chart and everything else. But a lot of those decisions are starting to come full circle. And the thing is, you got Jupiter in your first house, babes. And I want to be very, very clear about this. Jupiter, whenever it transits your first house, can be one of those energies that makes you very, very boastful and very confident. It can put a lot of emphasis in you being able to do well, but it can also make you very slow and complacent because we feel like everything's finally falling into place. And all of a sudden we have goldfish brain and we don't remember that things weren't always in place. To keep things in place, we must remain consistent. Our friends, our clients, our colleagues, they are seeing the transformation within. They're seeing how things are going, and they're seeing how you are starting to get exactly what you need to fall into place. They're seeing how your motivations have changed. And for you to continue to benefit from that over the long run, the best way you can handle this eclipse and everything that follows is to stay consistent. Keep things charging ahead. Keep things moving forward. Don't get complacent. Don't get lazy. I'm not just talking about this specific eclipse. I'm talking about all the way through all the energy that's going to follow also. You have a lot of things to be proud of. You have a lot of ego that is well placed in a lot of ways with Jupiter in your first. But again, I have to be very clear about this. Stay consistent. What you need to be doing moving forward is keeping everything very much solid in your routine and solid with what you're doing, because that will keep your financial gains later this year also very consistent. If you get complacent in what you've been working on, if you feel like everything's just going to keep going as smooth as it has been, I'm telling you, it ain't. It's going to get tested later. So again, make sure we're staying consistent and doing those things that we need to be doing, because it'll be very easy once we get into the summer to start overspending and not having enough to pay the bills later. Stay consistent, because that will keep your finances consistent. Okay. Let me bump this over to Taurus. For Taurus and Taurus rising, this is an eclipse in your 12th house of the unknown, the unseen endings, things going on behind your back, things going on in an area you've never been before, you experiencing things in a way you've never experienced before, you thinking in a way that you've never been able to process before. Considering Mars rules your 12th house, is in your 3rd house of communication and branding, a big part of the things that are coming through is shifting your mindset, shifting it in a pivotal way, shifting it in a way that is going to be very consistent. You have some old obligations that you still need to work through. You have some old karmic patterns that you still need to break. Part of this eclipse season, honeys, is exactly that. It's going to be breaking some karmic patterns, not just short-term patterns, not just recent relationship breakup patterns, or not just the getting over the relationship that you have been, but you're going to be starting a path of unlearning old ways of doing things and trying to find new ways of doing things. But understand those old ways, that old stuff, the stuff that we don't necessarily always want to talk about, whether you like it or not, they're going to be coming to the surface over this eclipse season. And it's going to impact some kind of relationship, whether that's a business relationship, a business partnership, or if that is a romantic relationship. There is a dynamic that is being tested in this eclipse season. And if you are in your own and you're on your path and you're in alignment, then this test is to strengthen it. However, if you have been trying to be sneaky, if you thought you could do whatever you want, I'm telling you, it's going to come back to bite you. And it's either going to come back to bite you in this eclipse season, or it's going to come back to bite you in the next eclipse season. So be very, very aware of this. There's a lot of shifts and a lot of changes in the way that you do things. And if you want things to continue to go well for you and for you to continue to have this new sense of strength and power moving into the future, being in alignment is going to be a big thing. And the way to get into alignment is to let go of the past. Change your pattern. Understand that we have to let go of the old ways of doing things. I know the thing about Taurus is you're very, very fixed earth and you like to be stuck in your rut. And I'm telling you, the rut isn't where you need to be anymore. The rut isn't for you anymore. You need a bigger rut. You need a new rut. You need a rut with an ocean view. You need a rut that's got a bigger fence and a bigger yard so you can have more animals. I'm not making it a bull joke. I'm more saying like you need more space for the dogs. Okay. All right. For my Geminis and my Gemini risings, having Venus in your 1st house right now is attracting a whole different level of attention that you haven't had in a while. Gemini risings have had a whole ordeal that last half of 2022. And even the first few months of 2023, like it was strained because Mars was doing so much in your 1st house. But now you kind of have Venus coming through and she's doing a Band-Aid fix. And you're attracting new attention, given that Mars is in your 2nd house of money and the fact that this new moon is in your 11th house of friends and network and colleagues. I see this in a couple different ways, depending on, again, where you are in your chart, where you are in your life path. For some of you Gemini risings, this is going to be having to put certain money into how you reach out to clients. This is going to be adjusting the way you spend money because your clientele is adjusting, and it's going to take you into an unknown area. For others, Venus in your 1st is going to be changing the connection to friendship, the connection to friends in the future. 1 or 2 of you are going to be dealing with friends that their energy towards you is shifting, and here pretty soon they're not going to be your friend anymore. You're going into uncharted waters once the Sun and later on Jupiter go into Taurus. There's going to be areas that are going to be very unexpected. Friendship dynamics can very much turn into romantic dynamics. You can have people coming out of the woodwork from places that you hadn't even thought of, or people that you haven't thought of in a very, very long time with the Mercury Venus mutual reception going on from the past, just continuously coming up and showing you different levels of attention. The way that you're doing things moving forward is going to really put you into an area you haven't quite been before, but where you're going to see the most gains in this area is going to be in regards to friendship, in regards to clients, in regards to your coworkers. You are getting certain things in place within those areas, knowing that they're going to benefit you financially later, that they're going to benefit the way that you brand certain things, the way that you market yourself, the way that you do certain things. But right now, as Mars is going through Cancer, you might be spending a lot more money than normal, connecting to certain people, but you don't realize that that little bit more than normal has a benefit that you haven't seen yet. It has a reward that you haven't seen yet. Okay. For Cancer and for Cancer risings, Mars in your first with an eclipse in your 10th. So many of my Cancer risings are taking a whole new level of control of their life. That Mars retrograde that occurred in the 12th house, it shook up everything in regards to like the past and doing things that you hadn't imagined before. And a lot of you had a big vision of like end of life experience and realizing like you need to get certain ducks in a row so that way you don't have to deal with some of the headaches that other people have dealt with. And after you saw that, now you're starting to take more control of everything, and you're starting to make certain pivotal changes in your finances, changes in your career, changes in regards to how you want your public image to be seen, how you want to do things, how well you want to do in life is very much tied to this new moon eclipse. Mars is now in your first house. You are taking control. A lot of my Cancer risings right now, y'all don't even look the same. I'm not saying that in an image sense. I mean, like your energy is not the same. Let somebody say something to you right now, you're going to put them in their place super, super quick. And whenever you have this change in your career, whether this is going from one brokerage to another, from being an agent to a broker, or going from working in a restaurant to working in a call center, going from working in a call center to working into a more public sales related store, whatever we're dynamic we're changing in regards to career is then going to impact the way that you reach out and talk to certain friends, how you reach out to talk to past clients, how you talk to your colleagues and your coworkers. A lot of my Cancer risings, we either are going through promotion, or again, we're going into a new area of business, we're starting a new business, we're doing something very, very much where you are the one in control and you are the one in charge. Now, there is going to be a level of sacrifice that comes with this, but I think for a lot of my Cancer risings, this is a sacrifice you're very prepared to make, at least mentally. Maybe not so much emotionally, but mentally we're on that path that we're getting really close to making certain decisions to be the ones that are in control of where we're going into the future. And considering what Jupiter's been doing in your 10th house all of this year, it's going to push a lot of things into place, and it's going to help the way that you connect with those clients and that you connect with those colleagues and the way that you connect with those friends. The way that you network later this year is going to be huge for your pocketbook. Okay. For Leo and Leo risings, babies, for some of you, you just need to take a break. I'm so serious. For Leo risings, like some of y'all just need to be able to take a step back. You need to take a break. You need to go on the trip. And I know that not all Leo risings have the ability to just book a vacation and then take off over the next few days. I wish more did. I wish all of us could just go tink, bye, but we can't always do that. You guys are going through a lot of heaviness right now. You're losing people. You're letting things go. You're having certain elements of your past, certain ethical things, certain amounts of karma, certain amounts of hidden things, secretive things that hadn't quite been known by everybody starting to come to the surface, starting to come back around. Some of you are having past decisions from, 10 years ago, again, coming back around. And some of these have to do with indiscretions, some of these not so much. It kind of really depends on your individual chart again. But we have very frustrating elements coming through that have been almost blindsiding. Whether that blindsiding has been with your friends or your colleagues, it has been very, very heavy coming through. And what I need you guys to know is that you are going through a set of lessons. As we go through this eclipse season, Mars is going to be going through your 12th house. And once eclipse season is over with, Mars will enter Leo. It will enter your first house. And then you will be able to start making very pivotal, necessary decisions to take back control of what is falling away from you right now. Now, for some of you, what's falling away from you has to do with a partnership, a marriage, relationships, and it's going to start to dissolve the way that you see your family. For others, it is literally a true partnership, and it is going to change the way that you make money. It's going to change aspects of your career in the future, but there's a heaviness to letting go right now. A lot of my Leo risings are either learning new things through experience, or they're going into courtrooms. They're going into levels of training or teaching, and the way that they're falling into it is like they were almost thrown into it. They definitely didn't have a choice. Like, it wasn't their choice to go sit in a courtroom. It wasn't their choice to suddenly be a trainer. Like, they were thrown into this. And we have to go through these moments of learning something we've never done before, dealing with things from the past, dealing with elements of our karma, and understanding that we have to make temporary decisions, temporary cutting people loose, temporary making space type of energies within this eclipse season. So that way the benefit can come when the nodal axis changes later this year and we go into that Venus retrograde in your first house in Leo. You've been going through some heaviness for a while. It's starting to wrap up. It'll be wrapping up over these next, I'm going to say 3 months because that's when the nodes will change signs, but really it's going to wrap up through eclipse season. So 1 to 3 months, we're going to wrap some things up, and then we'll start to see the benefit come through. We'll start to see the reward. Don't lose your cool. You've been doing well in a lot of ways, even though you've been getting tested. Just understand that we have to let people go when we've reached our end with them. We outgrow people, they outgrow us. People get old, people have life changes, they get sick, whatever it is. But whatever we've been dealing with within obligations or within partnership, whatever secrets that have been getting kept that are now starting to come to the surface, whatever that is, take your lashes if they're yours. If they're truly yours, take your lumps, take the lashes, deal with whatever karmic part is coming back around, and understand that that is to make space for the benefit that's going to come later. So just take the lumps. Okay. For Virgo and Virgo rising, y'all are on the verge of a dark night of the soul. I'm just saying, a lot of Virgo risings, you guys are on the verge of a dark night of the soul and you don't even know it. I have seen so many of my Virgo risings right now that they are starting to like either try to cling to friends or cling to certain people because they can feel the disruption coming, or they're completely pushing people away. And some of you, the clinging is what's pushing people away. Be aware of this. This is a new moon. This is an eclipse in your 8th house. It's the house of transformation. It's the house of shared assets, debt, death, taxes, inheritance, investments, the way you interact with certain people and their money, the way that you have made certain changes in regards to your business and in regards to the way that you wanting to move forward are starting to come through. But it's also starting to ruffle the feathers of the way that you connect with certain people. Either you're ruffling feathers or you're pushing a little too much, Mercury ruled individuals, you're pushing a little too much, and people are starting to fall away. People are starting to fall back. As this year progresses, we're going to have a whole different shift, and that's going to be the nodes going into your second and eighth house. Those nodes are also going to square Pluto when that happens. When they square Pluto, we're going to have things in your 12th house, the unknown, the unseen, and endings. There is going to be a lot of transformational energy for Virgo risings between now and the end of this year. I'm not just talking this eclipse season. I am talking all the way through. I don't ever just look at the minor aspect of a transit. I pay attention to where the dots will get connected. I'm connecting dots for you guys. Now, some of you are going to just be dealing with a topical level of the 8th house new moon, and that is changes in regards to the way that you connect with money and changes in the way that you are connecting with your coworkers or your clients or your colleagues. And we're going to be able to start teaching people new ways of doing things. We're going to be able to travel in some way. We're going to be going to new places, or we're going to be learning new things through experience. That's going to be the lighter way for Virgo risings. There's not a whole lot of you that's going to go through the brighter way. A lot of you are going to be going through the transformational energy. The energy that is going to bring certain generational things, karmic things, generational trauma, more and more to the surface. A lot of my Virgo risings, as we go through both of these next two eclipse axes, so again, till the end of the year, are really going to go through a lot of psychic transformation. And when we get to the Venus retrograde later this year, in your 12th house of the unknown, the unseen, and endings, you're going to be going through some level of a dark night of the soul. I'm just being very, very real. We're already seeing the need to make space for that right now. We're already seeing the shift of people moving into their places to leave you that space right now. As we continue through eclipse season, as we continue moving forward, you're going to see people fall away from you, and you're going to become very much more isolated over the months ahead. And I need you to mentally start preparing yourself for that now, because those shifts that have already been starting to come through the last few weeks are going to start to feel a lot heavier moving forward. Okay. For my Libra and Libra risings, this is a new moon eclipse in your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, obligations to other people in general. 7th house is always other people. Where's the ruler of the 7th house? In your 10th house, in the career house, in your public image, in your hopes and dreams for the future, in your plans for the future. And I said this in the last new moon eclipse. Not the eclipse, the last new moon video, the last Aries new moon video. Much of what's going on isn't your doing. Much of what's going to start coming through is from the doing of others. We're still in that. But now we're going to start to see just what their decisions, their antics, their ideas, their behavior is doing to you and how it's impacting you. This new moon, Mars is in your 10th house this time. It wasn't last time, it was in the 9th. So you hadn't even been able to start to experience the ripples, the chaos, the shifts at work. Now you're starting to see the shifts at work. We're also going to have a Mercury retrograde in your 8th house. This is going to have a lot of you taking a closer look at the finances, specifically shared finances. So if you're somebody that actually, has a business and a business partner, then you need to go through those bank statements and the credit card statements. If you are in relationship and we're looking at the idea of investments or inheritance, or we're looking at our retirement, we're going to need to go back over that. There's going to be something in regards to debt, death, taxes, credit cards, shared money, shared finances that needs a closer look, that needs your eyes on it. And if you've had things going on at your job, in your career that have not been going as they're supposed to, if the plan hasn't been following the way that it should, the way that everybody had said that it was going to fall into place moving forward, then it's time to start rethinking some things, especially if their actions and their decisions are ultimately keeping you from paying your bills. Got to be real clear about that. If they're not doing their part and it's impacting your budget, your finances, then decisions need to be made. Now, Libra is ruled by Venus. And where is Venus? It's in your 9th house. Some of you, especially if you're more into your alignment than anything else, can literally be looking at the idea and trying to weigh out travel. Should I take the trip? Should I not take the trip? I think you should, but I think you should wait till after the end of the Mercury retrograde. Some of you are experiencing new things. If we are looking at some shared assets or an investment or buying an investment, do the homework through the Mercury retrograde. Do not buy during the Mercury retrograde. Trust me on this. Wait until afterwards. Doing the trip? Wait until afterwards. You can book it now. Do it afterwards. Don't try to go until May or June or later. Now, there's one other element that I was picking up on, and I want to be really clear about this. And it's more going to fall into place like after the sun goes into Taurus and squares Pluto. And some of you can also be looking at your finances to take on the idea of having another kid or having a kid in general, or having some type of transformation that's going to impact the household and the finances. It's literally like, do we make enough? Can we handle the bills? What if I have to take off work? Things along these lines. And if everything lines out appropriately, whenever the sun hits that square to Pluto, this can be baby making energy. The other way that can go is if you're a little bit older and you don't necessarily want to have any more babies, maybe we want to have that little procedure that keeps us from having babies, then it's looking at our finances to make sure, can I do this procedure? If that's the way you're wanting to go, I say yes. If the other way is like you're wanting to have the babies, I'm saying yes. I think it's going to go well for my Libra risings. So understand just kind of where you guys are at in the energy. Some of you are trying to take your families to the next level. Some of you are about to change a lot of things in a career. Some of you are going to be finding out secrets that your significant other or your business partners have not been keeping from you. And I would not be surprised if I have at least 5 Libra risings tell me that they found something on the credit card statements. Just being real with y'all. Okay. Now, for Scorpio and Scorpio risings, this is a new moon in your 6th house. How you care for yourself, how you care for other people, how you are of service, what's in your routine, what's going on with the puppies, what's going on with the pets, what's going on with the livestock, what are you growing, what are we at in regards to like the farmland or anything along these lines, because I'm looking at the fact that Pluto, one of your chart rulers, is also in your 4th house of home life, and family. This new moon is squaring that Pluto. We feel more of the energy on the 20th of the square, but there is need to see the change. We can only go so far in our changes, and then we have to take them to the next level. We reach a plateau and we have to shift. We have to pivot. Part of the change, part of the transformation, part of the things that you've been working on now either require the attention of somebody else, has grabbed the attention of somebody else, or is going to require bringing somebody else in to finish the job, to get things going, to get things completed. And that is part of this energy. There's some level of light that needs to be shown in this area. Now, this is still an eclipse in that 6th house of health and in your routine. There is something that you have been working on that is now coming up to the next level. And it is now going to be recognized by more people than just the ones that you've been doing things with. It's going to be recognized by people from the past. You're going to find that as you start to do more and talk about more and launch more, and your name is coming out of more people's mouths, that more and more people are going to be like, oh, I haven't talked to her in forever. I haven't seen him in years. I need to catch up. And they're going to go through your Facebook page. They're going to go through your social media. They're going to start going through things. And you're going to have the DMs, and you're going to have the phone call, and you're going to have the text messages and the smoke signal and everything else. And the things that you have been working on that are starting to attract more and more attention from those other people are really going to start to come into shape and shine after this eclipse season. Not so much during. We got to get some things finagled and figured out, because we have that full moon eclipse that's going to be in your first house. So that means some level of what's going on in the sixth is individually going to impact you, your person, and your ego. So I don't feel like all of it comes through an eclipse season. I think part of it really starts to come into shape after eclipse season, but it's still there, and we're still slowly but surely working on it. We're bringing things forward. We're taking things forward in a lot of different ways. The more people that start to come back through with the Mercury retrograde in your seventh, the more beneficial it does on your finances with Venus in your eighth. The more you have people come through, the right people come through. It's not just about mass, by the way. If we're selling a bunch of chapsticks, mass is fine. But if you've built infrastructure and you're growing something, we don't want mass. We want the right people, the right ones in the tribe, to come through as necessary. So expect these people in waves, but there will be some people coming back through for Scorpio risings. Okay. So for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, there's a shift in your luck. For some of you, it's going to be really good luck. For others, okay. Hear me out. Jupiter is your chart ruler. Jupiter's in your fifth house. It's in Aries. That's where this eclipse is in Aries. But where does everything follow afterwards? It goes into that sixth house of health, the way you care for yourself, routine, things along these lines. Where is Mars? It is in your eighth house, other people's money. Certain things that are starting to come through, certain shifts in your routine have the ability to shift certain areas regarding that shared finance area, that eighth house area. Now, for some Sagittarius risings, it's going to be new love in secret. That I can't make up. And that's because Mars is in that eighth house, and the eighth house is a secret house. For some people, this can correspond to like affairs. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. It really can. That you have more love for somebody than they do, or you're starting a relationship and you're wanting to keep it low key. Low key is one thing. A lot of people, it's going to be more like secret. So be very, very aware of that. The shift in your luck needs to also be a shift in the routine. Understand that as we move forward and as we start to do these new things, and we have this adjustment in our routine, and that we have this adjustment in our care, and we have this adjustment in our health or somebody else's health, then it's going to require us letting something go. And that's a big part of that next eclipse that's going to happen in 2 weeks. That is, we have to build a routine, focus on this new routine, focus on this shift in our travel, in this communication aspect, a shift in our mindset. And for us to truly shift our mindset, we have to let something go. The let go is not going to be immediate, but as the weeks continue through eclipse season, we'll see what that is. And as we get closer to that full moon, that's going to be a big part of it. But this initial eclipse energy in Aries is a shift in your luck. For a lot of you, it's going to instigate a certain level of transformation. For others, it's going to mean karma and secrets and things that we don't necessarily want coming to the surface. And be very, very aware of that, because not everybody likes to have their stuff come to the surface, and not everybody understands that it's going to come to the surface. Okay. For Capricorn and Capricorn risings, There has been a shift in your mindset. There has been many, many things that keep coming to the surface that we're wanting to talk about, what we haven't been able to talk about. And as opposed to working on that or talking to who we're trying to talk to, we just continue to overthink. And the thing is we can't continue to overthink. We've been looking for a distraction, and that distraction has usually been dealing with something at home, putting things in order at home, working through things at home, fixing things at home, changing things in with the family, changing things for family, and trying to get something to shift through. Now, Mars rules your fourth house of home, home life, and family, and that's where this eclipse is. However, Mars is in your seventh house of other people. There are going to be some Capricorn risings that they're going to be making decisions in the weeks ahead as to like who deserves to be in the big picture because they were a part of the process. They were supportive in the process. Others are going to be putting so much in line and being very, very focused on family and home life that anyone that's not supporting of this, those people are going to fall away. Those people are going to end up moving away. There's a shift in between family and children, home life and loved ones, happiness, joy, roots, and ancestry. And that's going to play through with this eclipse and moving forward. Now, with the sun squaring Pluto in that second house of money, is we're going to see the need to put more money into an area. We're going to see where our money has been. We're also going to see the benefit of certain things. Now, one other aspect of regards to Pluto and the fact that Pluto has spent so much time in y'all's first house, it's just doing the pinky toe dip into the second. So a lot of my Capricorn risings are very, very in tune with this Plutonian energy. For a lot of my Capricorn risings, they're going to have to say something harsh or give a little bit of an ego check to loved ones, to family members, to children, telling them you can't just spend money like water. You can't just go out and buy something to make yourself happy again. That's not how the world works. In some way, shape, or form, you have to deal with whatever is happening, whatever is truly coming through. You can't just throw money at everything and think that it's going to go away. And if anyone knows that, it's you Saturnian people. Now, how nice you are about that conversation is a very different story, considering Saturn's been going through Pisces and has been making you really dwell and think about certain deep level emotions. Y'all can be a little snappy. There can be some snappiness here. However, a lot of the focus in the mindset, a lot of the focus in how we are dealing with family, a lot of the focus in how we have made changes in our home life and in our family is going to allow for certain space and adjustment in regards to love, in regards to children. With the Mercury retrograde in this fifth house, it means that if you've had kids move away from home, then we're going to start to see children come back through. We're going to start to see people from our childhood come back through. We're going to start to have loved ones come back through that haven't been there in a while. Because what are you Capricorn risings really good at doing? Finding the one thing wrong and pushing everybody away. The thing is, some of y'all have pushed the wrong people away, and those people are coming back. They're meant to come back. Some of you are desiring for them to come back. Some of you need to remember, if you push them away, that means you need to make the phone call to bring them back. Okay. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this is a new moon in your third house, communication, short distance travel, the way that you market things, the way that you brand things, the way that you connect with siblings. This can also have to do with automobiles. There is something in this energy very, very much tied to the way that you're talking to people, the way that you're communicating. There's a test to the things that you've been working on over the last month, And now you have Mars in your 6th house. Some of you, the test is going to be literally in regards to your health. And if you haven't already dealt with, some of you already dealt with this actually. Moving forward though, some of the things that you've decided, some of the things that you have talked about, some of the communication that has been had is now also a part of the test. And the whole idea is this is a pressure test energy. It is trying to see that you have learned what you need to learn to allow for this new area of gains and stability for your family. Because the one thing I will say about Aquarius is right now, yeah, Uranus in your 4th house of home, life, and family. Y'all real focused on making sure that the family is in order and is stable and is lined out. That's awesome. A lot of you over the weeks ahead are also going to start to see things shift into place for loved ones, for your children, for people from your childhood. We're starting to see how well things have gone for them based off the decisions that you've made. That pressure test is also making you see how your adjustment and your transformation is now affecting them. Now, for some of us, that can be positive. For some of us, that can be negative. It really comes down to how well you're doing with Pluto in your 1st. For some of you, Pluto in the 1st is going to make you very, very strict on your family. For others, it's going to be the family seeing you come into your power. It really kind of comes down to how you're dealing with this energy, where you're taking things forward, and how this is playing out in your chart and with your karma. For a lot of my Aquarius risings, this is meant to have things fall into place and again, have new stability for family. But for others, that Pluto energy has been very, very triggering. And it's been making things hard at home. And with this Mercury retrograde in that 4th house of home, life, and family, it is going to be your loved ones. It is going to be those people that we care about that are going to put a little bit of checks on you, reminding you where that energy should be and where the heaviness of that energy should be. Your focus is making sure that the finances are in order. But by putting every effort into making the finances are in order, we can start to sacrifice other people's happiness and other people's enjoyment. We can start to take out our frustrations and our hard day on them. Don't do that. Don't be surprised if somebody has to check you in the next few weeks telling you to stop being an ass. Because some of you Aquarius risings are an ass. I said what I said. I don't care. Okay, sorry. Last but not least, Pisces and Pisces rising. This is a new moon in your 2nd house. This is the 2nd new moon in your 2nd house. We have had a month of trying to get certain things in order in regards to assets, in regards to finances. Our focus has been so very, very strongly put onto the money area. Where is this money area focus affecting? That 5th house of love, happiness, romance, and children. We've had to make an adjustment for this area because Mars is now in Cancer. For some of us, this is seeing changes with our children and knowing that they're going to impact our finances later on. There are going to be some of us that are having to get things in order so that way the children can quit having disruptions. Some of us, the children are the disruption and they're growing and it's time to go to college and it's time for something bigger. And then again, it's making you shift your finances, shift your values. How are we going to do this moving forward? How are we going to work with a part of our routine? How are we going to get things in order? How are we going to share certain responsibilities once one person has made a shift elsewhere? Now, we also have that element of the Sun and Pluto. Pluto is in your 12th house, the unknown, the unseen, and endings. For some of us, there's going to be travel to an unknown area. Considering there's Pluto here, we could be scared of this idea of travel. If you're a mom taking your son to go look at colleges, like, I'm excited that you have done well, but I don't want you to leave home because you're my baby, even though you're, 6 foot tall. tall and 300 pounds and whatever else. Like, you're a big football player now, not the little baby, but that mama doesn't care. You're still her baby. So this shift in our mindset and this shift in where we're going and this shift to look at something that we don't want to look at is necessary, because it's not about you, it's about somebody else. Now, for others, that Sun Pluto square is going to be making us go back to some place in the past that has to do with some level of trauma, some level of fear, some level of frustration, and it's going to make us face something. When we get new information between the Sun Pluto square, whatever comes to light in that energy is meant to make us shift part of our mindset. It's also going to allow for us to make certain decisions, specifically in regards to travel. The sun will immediately go into your third house, short distance travel, but in a few weeks, we're going to have the full moon in your ninth house, which is long distance travel. So I know for a lot of my Pisces risings, there is some level of travel, going somewhere from the past, going someplace completely unknown, doing something you've never done before in the energy. And for a lot of you, it is going to be connected to travel. It is going to be connected to your children. It's going to be connected and have to do with your family. So understand there are shifts in this area in this eclipse season. Moving forward from eclipse season, that's going to be a big part of the energy. We have a lot of things falling into place that's going to be beneficial to your routine and beneficial to your family later on. But the first energy, this inkling of the first energy, might not be as happy as you want it to be. It'll get better, especially once Saturn goes retrograde. It'll get better because you'll get far more familiar with Saturn's energy in your first house. But understand that we're going into changes into unknown areas, new experiences, unexpected experiences, and we're going to be dealing with things in the long term from this transit and from this energy. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We are going from, again, Mars ruled eclipses we're going from Mars retrograde energy that's how we started this year, into now Mars ruled eclipses. This is meant to close out one part of the cycle that we started in January of 2022. Technically November of 2021. We were talking about that. But when the nodes changed sign, it was January of 2022. Now, moving forward, this is going to be that final element of shifting things into place and clearing space and getting things into alignment, so that way the plateau energy of we can only go so far and then we have to shift or adjust. We've gone that far. This is the shift. This is the adjustment. The shift and the adjustment has a certain level of nurturing to it, because where is Mars? In Cancer. So we have Mars ruled eclipses while the ruler is in Cancer. So these are adjustments, these are shifts, but they have to do with a level of nurturing. They have to do with a level of care that is going to allow for things to progress and to move forward. But we have to get through the eclipse. We have to get through this. I don't really have a choice. Like, if you wake up every day, there's a whole new day, the sun's a new degree, transits are moving, the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So no matter what, we're charging ahead. Now, understand that whenever it comes to the eclipse axis and the eclipse energy, it's not always going to play out on the day of the eclipse. I don't just count the day of the eclipse. I look at the entire moon cycle. So this is the start of eclipse season. This is the new moon. Eclipse season will not end until that new moon in Taurus. I started this little shindig talking about that. New moon in Taurus. So remember where we're at over the next month, the things that are tied to this eclipse, they're going to play out anytime over the next month. That's going to go through the whole new moon phase, the full moon phase, and winding back down to the next new moon phase. We've got a month of eclipse season. And these are very Mars ruled, so very action oriented. There can be frustrations. We are ruffling surface level emotions with Mars going through Cancer. We are changing certain things in areas that are usually nurturing, in areas of support, in areas that require more care. So understand these are very necessary, pivotal shifts into that next phase and that next chapter and the next axis of the eclipse, which will still be in Venus and Mars ruled signs. So what things started for us in November of 2021, whenever we got that inkling, that preview of where we were going, now we have fast forwarded. We have been in this energy since January of 2022, because that's when the nodes change signs. So that's when this 18-month transit of energy started. And now we're in the third and final eclipse axis tied to that. So again, very much understand what's moving forward is meant to be pivotal, necessary shifts all month. So there will be people moving away. There will be people cutting ties. There will be people going and changing where they have their root system, because Cancer rules home life. There will be people that have made adjustments in their own home currently that are starting to come to a conclusion. They're coming to the peak in their transformation. And now we're going to be able to take new steps moving forward after eclipse season. Right now, we're on a plateau. We've reached the top of the steps, and we either need to make a decision to grab the zip line and move towards something else, change part of the pattern, or we bring somebody in to help build those next round of steps, to help make things come forward. There is very much an energy that we're not doing everything alone. It's so funny, but it's true. A lot of Aries energy is very much about individual and what they are doing as a person. But the thing is, you can only go so far, and you can't do everything by yourself. I have tried. I'm stubborn. I have tried. So I'm happy with this eclipse. I'm excited for this eclipse. The song that I've been hearing for the last 24 hours has been Ain't It Fun by Paramore. And like, I'm still hearing it right now. It's crazy. So we're seeing how things are coming together, and we're seeing how the things that we've done on our own can finally start to take shape, and see how they can finally launch and move forward. That's where we're going. Forward motion. We've had certain things come to light. We've had those things come to the surface, and now we need things to shift into place. Now we need the people that are a part of that next chapter to come back through, the ones that we have ties to, those clients that we used to work with, our colleagues that we used to work with. There's going to be an energy of some things from the past coming back through and being a part of the next chapter. But again, that's in that part of eclipse season. So part of this energy that's taking shape, we still won't feel the full effect of until the end of eclipse season, and until that end of that Mercury retrograde. So if you didn't listen to my Mercury retrograde video where I went through and I gave multiple dates, go back and watch it, because that Mercury retrograde is very much hand in hand with this eclipse season. Mercury retrograde will end right around the time the eclipse season will end. This isn't a coincidence. The things that come through, the shifts that come through, the people that come back into our lives, the changes in our mindsets, the shift in the ideals, they're all necessary right now. They're all very much needed to put things and put people into alignment. This eclipse timeline is about alignment. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Hit me up with questions, hit me up with concerns, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Subscribe.